BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello, I'm Amy Canavan and this is the Scottish Football Podcast, keeping you up to speed with everything you need to know in the national game. It's Tuesday the 23rd of April and here's what's coming up.
Terrible clearance and then the shot from Stuart Armstrong makes it 3-0.
With Stuart Armstrong the latest injury doubt for Scotland at the Euros, we'll assess the areas of the squad that will be giving Steve Clarke a headache, but it's not all doom and gloom.
Christie on the turn, he shoots across and it's in! Ryan Christie scores! That could be the moment of history that a nation has waited for!
Could a reinvented Ryan Christie be a key man for the national team at the Euros? And
Here we go, Bear. So 1v1, chops back. Chops back again, and he finishes. Big fella, what a goal.
it's Team of the Year time. Theo Bair is in, but who else should have made the cut? Lots of big questions to be answered today, and I'm pleased to say that they will be by John Walker, coach, analyst and co-host of the Scots Abroad podcast, and Mark Atkinson, sports editor of The Scotsman. Good morning, guys. Hope you're both ready to go. There's plenty to discuss with John and Mark, but before we get stuck in, let's quickly run through the latest Scottish football headlines. Scotland could be given a boost for Euro 2024 with a rule change that could see squads expanded from 23 to 26. French outlet L'Equipe are reporting that UEFA's National Team Competitions Committee voted in favour of the increase. Sticking with the national team, Southampton manager Russell Martin says that Stuart Armstrong has a big chance to be fit for the finals, despite confirming he'll miss the rest of the season for his club with a quad muscle injury. Former Rangers assistant manager Gary McAllister says that the Ibrox side will be judged this season on whether they win the league title or not. And Bologna players paid tribute to injured captain Lewis Ferguson by posing for a photo with his jersey before their 3-1 away win over Roma last night. Well, we could probably spend a whole podcast discussing how we feel when sides do such things, but instead, let's speak about the state of the current Scotland squad. Mark, good morning. Stuart Armstrong is the latest injury doubt for the Euro squad. Steve Clarke's not got his troubles to seek at the moment, does he?
You're right, Amy. Yeah, the worst possible timing for some of these injuries. We lost Lewis Ferguson this time last week, and now we have another midfield injury in Stuart Armstrong. And of course, we have the issue at right back with Nathan Patterson and Aaron Hickey. I suppose the midfield one, while Armstrong and Ferguson are probably not automatic starters, they're still very much key members of this squad. And suddenly you look at midfield and the depth isn't quite as strong as it once was.
That was always the strong point, the positive suit for Scotland, that we were oozing with talent and depth. John, Southampton manager Russell Martin, let's bring the positivity back up, Amy, says that Armstrong has a big chance of making the finals. If he doesn't, bringing it right back down again, because that's what I like to do, just how big a miss would he be? Because Mark sort of touches on it there. He might not be a starter, but Steve Clarke, as we know, a very loyal man, a very loyal manager. Armstrong, of course, earned his 50th cap just last month against Northern Ireland. He's a very valued member of the squad, isn't he?
Yeah, Steve Clarke, everyone knows Steve Clarke likes to run the Scotland national side as a club side. He likes consistent faces, he likes the same people, same training sessions, and I think that's probably going to be one of the biggest hindrances. We'll be lucky to find 26 players at this rate that can go, that have played for Steve Clarke when we go, but I think players like Stuart Armstrong just really likes him, and that is one of my concerns, and has been one of my concerns over Steve Clarke's tenure. Is I have these arguments with people all the time about maybe we should call in one or two new faces in this squad, and he goes, yeah, but we don't need to. Who does he replace? And you go, injuries happen. There's still 4 weeks of this season left. I'm terrified every time I watch Aston Villa because they always look dead in their feet, and I'm just like, going to put John McGinn in ice and just have him play in the European games, please.
Absolutely. I think many people had that thought last week when Aston Villa might have just crashed out of Europe, but no, they managed to complete the incredible comeback. I'll give you your opportunity then, John. Given that there are some injuries in this side, if Stuart Armstrong doesn't make it, and obviously Lewis Ferguson is still a serious doubt as well, who would you be bringing in? Who could come in and replace these guys?
Into those areas, it's really difficult for me. I think you probably have to start bolstering your attacking areas. Bringing somebody like Ryan Hardy, I think we've discussed him before, into the squad, and just having the 4 strikers, especially if you're popping up to 26. As for midfield, for me, you're probably stealing from the 21s, because one of my biggest fears under Steve Clarke was seeing a repeat pattern of Craig Brown, which was it was the same faces until they had no legs left in them. We're at a major tournament. We've got a chance to take a few young players that are in the under-21s that are consistent, who could be going to major tournaments in 2 years' time. So I would be looking down to the under-21s. It's actually a shame that Lewis Farini hasn't really taken his loan spell this year after his injury, because I know he was up at the 21s and they really liked him. But yeah, I'd be wanting to take the best of the 21s, whether it was a bizarre one like a Lyle Cameron and just taking him as an extra member of the squad, because I think he could be someone that could kick on in Scotland. But yeah, see, because you don't see those familiar faces, it's really struggling. Like, I made a joke about Stephen O'Donnell being in contention, but Steve Clarke really likes those same faces that I'm looking at right back and going, he might.
Sod back on the big stage. Mark, who would you be bringing in? We've just heard from John there that he'd perhaps bolster the attacking options instead, but what would your thinking be?
Good shout by John in terms of getting another striker in there, especially go to 26. I think if you're looking at midfielders, if you're going 21s, Connor Barron would probably be the one that would jump off the page there, but I'm not convinced he's ready to be in the international setup. Tom Kearney's a name that's been mentioned in dispatches. He spoke in January about how he still hoped to add to his Scotland caps 6 years on from his last one. He's 30 years old. He's not started that recently for Fulham, but he has been an integral part of the team for much of the season, and in the first half of the season was playing very, very well. Experienced player, good user of the football, has been playing at a good level. So you could argue he would come in, but it's slim pickings. Right the way through the team, if we get any more injuries, it's a real concern, because there just isn't the depth to bolster a 26-man squad. You've got to hope that Armstrong makes it. I have big doubts about Ferguson, to be honest. And then the right-back situation is concerning. It's not just about the guys being fit, it's about the guys being match fit. And having football under their belt. There's a good chance that Aaron Hickey will join the Scotland squad, having not kicked a ball competitively in 2024. And that's a major worry.
For me, like, at what point do we start phoning around the English contingent, though, again? Because I know that's a pretty interesting one, but you've got the Newcastle boys, who I know one of them walked away, I know one of them was injured before, and I know we've got the English, Portuguese, Scottish right back that we're kind of fighting for. All 3 of them, I would be making them deals for life, all 3 of them just now, because I think they're all playing for Newcastle just now. They would instantly jump that squad. If you said to me we went 23, 26 and we somehow managed to convince Livramento, Anderson and Barnes, I think the squad somehow looks stronger again.
I usually have big hopes that Steve Clarke listens to this podcast. Right now, I don't think he will be. And if we are, we're sorry, Steve. But tune in right now, because, John, you've been looking at Ryan Christie's recent form at Bournemouth. Let's definitely wrap the positivity up. How has he impressed this season? I'm
so impressed. I thankfully don't go through and delete tweets. So if anyone wants to, you can probably find some Ryan Christie tweets of mine from a few years ago where I always thought Ryan Christie was somebody in a Scotland squad that could be replaced. Not the squad, sorry, in the starting 11. I thought there were better players available. However, whatever Areola seen when he came in at Bournemouth, Ryan Christie did an interview last week where he was talking about when he came in and said, how would you feel about playing as a 6? And he went, I've never played as a 6. I was a wide man into a 10. I've always been a forward player. What do you see? And he goes, I think you've got better capability to play as a 6. And he said he was really uncomfortable until he started playing in there. I know Sky Sports did a segment on him. I think it was about 4 weeks before the international break, 4 weeks ago, when he was going off for Scotland. And he was in top 10 for midfielders in the English Premier League for presses, overturns, high presses, pressing passers. He was above Rodri, Bruno Guimaraes. He was one and 2s in the presses. And seeing from the comparison of the year before, I know he's in a different position, but it's night and day. See, he's bizarrely, for not playing as a forward player now, his final third recoveries are higher. His game intelligence just appears through the roof. When I watch him, it is genuinely like seeing a different player. He picks the ball up off centre halves. He's normally sometimes the deepest line playmaker. He's creating more chances from a deeper position than he ever did, taking more shots with higher accuracy, although he's not scoring. I just think it's all, you almost obviously cover the Scots Abroad podcast, and a lot of that is based on players not fit in Scottish football. And there are other countries. We've created technical footballers for years, but we play a second ball style of football, and sometimes those players go completely missing. I think Ryan Christie, at the age he is now, has finally found the position he should have been playing the whole time, because he looks so technically good in the ball. He looks like one of those Spanish midfielders from 2010 in that squad that plays in there, is comfortable 1-2 touch driving with the ball. And it's one of those ones where I'm like, it's amazing to watch, but it's also a shame that we're now finding it going into the latter, not the latter years, but he is hitting his peak, and it'd be good to see him do what Billy Gilmore's doing from the age of 20 in that position.
What do you make of that, Mark? And how could you perhaps see Ryan Christie fit that sort of role for Scotland?
Well, it's fascinating hearing it, and he has been very impressive this season. The problem for me is that I don't think what Ryan Christie does at club level transfers into the international team. Now, firstly, who would you drop in that area to put Ryan Christie in there? I'm not convinced that he will put Christie in there ahead of guys like Callum McGregor and Billy Gilmore if they're fit, even Scott McTominay. We saw Ryan played higher up the pitch against Northern Ireland, and it was really disappointing, because actually he looked like a man that was in unfamiliar territory, and that's because he's been essentially brainwashed at Bournemouth, which is good. I mean, it's good that he's changed. I think he's got more mature as the years have gone on as well. He's taken a lot of football in Scotland and then gone down to England and just become a much more rounded footballer, probably mentally as much as anything else. It's great to have the option, but I just don't see him starting in that role. And that's a shame, because you've got one of these players that's been so good in one of the top leagues this season, underappreciated probably up here. Let's be honest, but we probably won't see the best of him in this tournament. He's got to hope maybe that if we are without Armstrong and Ferguson, he can perhaps rewind the clock and morph back into that number 10 or wide guy that can potentially be a match winner in that part of the pitch.
Mark used a lot of interesting words in there, John. Maturity. And the thing that strikes me the most, can you understand why Scotland fans perhaps have long had that frustration with Ryan Christie?
Yeah, Ryan Christie, and actually Mark touched upon a point that I have as a frustration with Steve Clarke sometimes, is Lewis Ferguson came on in both games as a deeper line midfielder. He's been playing as a kind of inverted 10 for Bologna. Ryan Christie is playing a holding role. You like just switch them around and make it make sense. I know we play different types of football. If I look at Scotland's campaign, McGinn and McTominay to me are the better attacking midfielders behind the striker. Better go for it. So if Billy Gilmore doesn't make it, to me, Ryan Christie and Callum McGregor have played at club level for 5-6 years. He would be my next vote in there, if that was the way forward.
I want to sort of circle back to a point that we touched upon earlier, the right back issue, because we never went into enough depth about it already, and I just want to make us all a little bit sadder again. If Nathan Patterson doesn't make it, and if Aaron Hickey doesn't make it, who are we welcoming in?
I was at Motherwell Hibs a couple of weeks ago, and I watched Stephen O'Donnell. At this point, we weren't aware about Patterson's situation, and I was thinking, God, what a fantastic servant he's been, but I don't see him being a Scotland player going forward. Suddenly we're mentioning him again, a dependable character, but I think Tony Ralston's next in line to start. Who do you bring in after that? I mean, you're probably looking at someone like Max Johnson, but he's not playing that much, if at all, actually. I think he's come off the bench a handful of times recently in Austria with Sturm Graz. He has been in the squad before, and he's obviously got potential, and he's liked by Steve Clarke and the coaches. But yeah, you're probably looking at someone like him. You're going back into the 21s and bringing in players that have had some exposure. We just don't have that many right-sided defenders to choose from. Do you start to try and put square pegs in round holes? Do you move players around? It's a really difficult one. And I think we're focusing on midfielders. We have more options in midfield than we do at right back, and we really have got to try and hope that Hickey and Patterson, one of them or both of them, make it.
You were mentioning Newcastle players earlier, John. Livramento, of course, would sort of come into this discussion. Where else there has been discussion, and perhaps we'll also come on to it a little bit later in the podcast, Danny Armstrong, Lewis Mayo at Kilmarnock. Can you see that happening?
I could see as a wild card Danny Armstrong, because he allows you to play him as a wing back and he allows you to have an actual winger in the squad, which we're desperately lacking and don't have, to maybe change the system. So no, I can't see Lewis Mayo getting promoted. I think Lewis Mayo's had an excellent season, really surprised me. But I really struggling to see where the new faces would come in. And I don't think Lewis Mayo would be one. Danny Armstrong I could see, just because his flexibility in different positions that he could play and change the system. I think Livramento, out of all the English-linked players, Portuguese-linked players, has been the cutest in all his PR. He's always played every side of his family. He's never committed to it. I just think he would be the dream one, but I just think he's set for an England call in the future, and he probably knows that, looking at their right-backs, pretty much aged ahead of him. So a wee bit gutted about that. He was the one I'd kind of hoped if we did lose, but then we were in a blessed position with Patterson and Hickey, and I thought we had a Robertson Tierney situation where I was going, how do you play these two people? I think Aaron Hickey will be there. I know he won't have played, but he'll be there and he'll play.
Mark, I know Aaron Hickey is a player that you have previously spent a lot of time watching when he was up here. Does it concern you, though, that he won't have played since competitively, probably since around October time?
Yeah, it does. It does. I'm not going to lie about that. But then I suppose the flip argument is that you've got him fresh. You can put him through sort of almost like an intensive mini pre-season. He's a very, very good player. And again, we talked about players that have grown. I think his maturity has really come on, having gone to Italy and then Brentford. And he's a very, very fit guy. There's obviously counter arguments to the lack of match fitness, but when it gets to the point where you're lining up in Munich on June 14 and you've not played since October, and you might have Florian Wirtz or another fantastic speedy German forward coming at you, it's a different beast. I think John's right. I think all the noises coming out of Brentford, heard Stephen Presley speak last week, there is a lot of hope that Hickey will be there. We just got to hope that he's there in a good shape.
You're listening to the Scottish Football Podcast.
Finally then, let's get on to the PFA Scotland Team of the Year. When this is announced, it was announced at the weekend, it usually causes a bit of a stir, but with everything going on with the Scottish Cup semi-finals, it was a bit of a mad one. It maybe went a little bit under the radar, so we thought we'd bring it right back to the fore and have a quick look at the Premiership team today. And in case you missed it, here is the team, and a reminder, it is voted for by the players: Butland, Tavernier, Carter, Vickers, Scales, Beck, O'Reilly, Lundstrom, McGregor, Miofsky, Shankland and Baer. Who do you think each should be in the team that isn't, and why? And for this one, we'll start with you, John.
For me, it just annoys me when I see a team of the year and it doesn't look like a football team. That's the biggest frustration. If we're just going to vote for the 11 best players, let's just vote for the 11 best players and have 10 forwards in there, because a front three of Miofsky, Shankland and Baer isn't winning any football matches. They're not creating any chances. So that bugs me a little bit. The goalkeeper, I think's correct. James Tavernier, think's correct. Carter Vickers, debatable only because of the lack of games and injuries he's had, but Carter Vickers is the best defender in the league by a country mile, and if he wasn't injured, he'd be leaving Celtic in the summer for a bigger move. Liam Scales is only in there because he's Celtic's centre-half. Liam Scales been in there ahead of Frankie Kent for me is absolutely ludicrous. I've watched Hearts, even in games that Rangers have beat them. Frankie Kent's been a cracking player. I really think he's talented. I think he's been a massive part of Hearts' success, especially when they went in the run where they were constantly keeping clean sheets. So Frankie Kent would have replaced Liam Scales. Owen Beck, yes, similar to the Carter Vickers issue though. Dundee have excelled since he's been out of the team. Alex Cochrane for me has been an excellent, I know he's played left wing back more often, but he would have been my left back if I was playing a 4. O'Reilly, McGregor, don't disagree with, but I think I would have had Luke McCowan in ahead of John Lundstrom as McGregor as my sitter in that team. And you would have just had to make the decision. For me, I would have picked 2 wingers. So unfortunately for me, Miofsky and Baer miss out just because Lawrence Shankland has been absolutely phenomenal. I know he's had a bit of a murky spell recently, but watching him against Livingston, he's added something different again to his game outside the goals. Lawrence Shankland's been unbelievable. So for me, it's Danny Armstrong at right wing, and left wing's a toss-up for me, but I'm going to go with Blair Spittle because you can't get those goals and assists in a struggling Motherwell side for a long spell and not be considered. And I think he's the one, out of all the people that I've seen mentioned, not mentioned, Blair Spittle not being in that starting 11 is unbelievable to me. So Blair Spittle would have got in. I think Seema was probably my next one, but same issues, Vickers, etc. I just think he's been injured for too long of the season. So yeah, Armstrong, Shankland and Spittle are my front three.
There is plenty to unpick there, Mark. I think the takeaway is no Miovski for John.
Yeah, although John, I'm with John with a number of those selections. We'll come back to Miovski in a second, but Frankie Kent's a great shout and would be on my list. I'd also throw Stephen Kingsley in there because Kingsley's had to play a variety of different positions, from right-sided centre-half at a 4, to a 3, to the middle of a 3, left of a 3, wing-back, and has played at a high level and is actually somebody that the Scotland national team have asked for data on. So he's obviously had a great season. So to be contrary, I'll go with Kingsley over Kent, but to be honest, John's nailed Kent. I'm not going to argue with that one. Danny Armstrong as well. I was stunned that Danny Armstrong's name wasn't mentioned more. I think it's 6 goals, 10 assists in the Premiership. Kilmarnock had an excellent season. In fact, it was a bit sad to see Kilmarnock so poorly represented given what they've done this season. And then the strikers. So I'm not going to tinker with the formation. Let's keep it at 4-3-3, although I agree that team is going to be mid-table at best. I would keep Miovski. I'm a big fan of Miovski. I wrote a piece saying that Rangers and Celtic have missed a trick here because they've let Miovski get to a point now where he'll probably go to a bigger club because his stock is so high and he's developing so well. Shankland's been fantastic. Hearts' is talisman. But I'm going to throw in the ultimate wild card, and I'm going to hear some laughs here. I wouldn't have Theo Bair in there. If I was going to go for another striker, I'd go for Cyril Dessers. And I'll tell you why. Because of it. I see it. His goals are good. I know he misses a lot of chances, but he's got better and better as the season gone on. He's mentally got a lot stronger. And I think his numbers speak for themselves. I still think he's a proficient forward. I would have Seema ahead if he was fit all the time, but he's not. I suppose I just think if you were to compare those two players, Bair and Dessers, Bair's had a good second half of the season, but I still think if we're going to play a 4-3-3 and you're going to have 3 forwards, Dessers would be the next one behind Miovski and Shankland. What does that say about the league this season? It probably says that guys like Kyogo have underperformed massively. Guys like Martin Boyle at Hibs, who's had injuries. Maybe Maizan Maouida, if he'd been playing the whole season, might have got in there because he's a very, very good player, but you've got a small sample size. So if we're sticking 4-3-3, I chuck Dessers in there ahead of Bair. But I'd probably have Armstrong ahead of Bair and Dessers if we were putting a different slant on the formation.
Just to round off, I cannot allow that to not be countered. So, John, I'm going to let you have back at Mark's suggestion there.
For me, with Dessers, is the comparison for me is I will always put all 3 of those strikers, Miovski, Shankland, Bair, in Rangers team, and Rangers win the league this year. Is my consideration. I think I've watched Theo Bair have more consistent, clinical types of finishes, composed finishes. I've seen him dink the goalkeeper. I've seen him go around the goalkeeper. His pace, his strength, finishes from just inside the box. Anyone that's watched Dessers, a lot of Dessers finishes are close to the keeper. It's kind of, you look and go, that probably wasn't as cleanly hit as I would have liked a Rangers number 9 that's getting, by all accounts, 5 or 6 good chances a game to feel his way into this league. When I look at some of Miovski's finishes, I mean, Mark's hit the nail on the head. I was saying a year and a half ago that I was impressed with Miovski and couldn't understand why Rangers and Celtic weren't trying to steal him for $3 million, because now it's double, treble that he's going to go for to an English Championship, potentially promoted Premier League team. Yeah, that's my only issue with Dessers, is I think you could put a number of Scottish Premier League centre forwards in his place, and Rangers would be top of the league with a higher goal scoring striker.
Well, it's time to wrap things up for today, but I wouldn't be surprised if this pair continue this debate. Thanks very much to Mark Atkinson and John Walker, and thank you very much for listening. Alistair Lamont will be back tomorrow with a special look at Hibs and how they have ended up out of the top 6. If you've got any questions or comments for that one, get them in. Our email address is scottishfootball@bbc.co.uk. And remember, we publish new episodes every weekday morning, so you can get your daily dose of Scottish football bright and early. So if you haven't done so already, just follow and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss out. Enjoy the rest of your day, and until next time, bye-bye for now.
Just a quick reminder, the Behind the Goals podcast is available every Tuesday with me, Rachel Corsey, and me, Leanne Crichton. It's your one-stop shop for our take on everything that's happening in the world of football. Just head to BBC Sounds or wherever you get your podcasts and search for Behind the Goals.